Hey, my creative friends. My name is Shannon, and I'm from shannonstudio.com. And I come on every night. That's been my goal for 2019-2020. And to do a content video every night that talks about creativity, creative life, anything that might help us with that viewpoint. So, and then I also talk a little bit about Sweden because I'm living in Sweden and what specific things I might be doing creatively. So I've been working on my fabric collection. If you followed along at all, I have a fabric collection. I turned it in. It wasn't very good. The designs were fine in and of themselves, but they didn't make a collection. It didn't have the story. It lacked in a lot of ways. And so so I had to redo it. And I've just been like pounding on new paintings because it was like I could maybe pull this out or that out. And what I realized was, hey boyfriend, what I realized was that I didn't start out with the process I normally use, and so I had to just like push it all aside and not start over per se, but start over with the thought process and then see what I could pull back in that I already done and what I would leave out. So I just have one more thing to do and I will be done. And I think and it's like I said before, I think it's going to be a way better fabric collection because I went back and did things differently. It just wasn't coming across. So actually I like it a lot, and it's not like I won't use those designs for something else later. So it's not that bad of a situation. Hey Trisha. So okay, so my grandmother, her birthday would have been March. I guess we're April 1st today. April Fool's Day today. Joseph was telling me today how he thought today you can do tricks to people. He thought that was really great. He didn't think of any, but he thought it was great that there was a day allowed to be able to make and do tricks on people. He thought that was really good. So I think in our future we will have more tricks. I almost came up with a trick for him to do. So when the husband came home, but I'm going to save it. I'm not going to say it now because he's watching. So we'll save it for another time. So my gram, she was often described as stoic, and I did not know there was a group of people and a philosophy, the Stoic philosophy. I thought it was just like an adjective, where she's just stoic and hey Carrie. So when somebody described her as stoic, my thought process with the word was that she didn't show emotion. And that wasn't quite her, but as I have just studied a little bit, which I think I'm going to study some more because it just is really interesting to me. So described her as stoic. She went through the depression as a child, teenager. So, there's just a certain type of personality that came out from that. And I think they were very controlled of their emotions. And so stoic means, to us it meant don't show emotions, and it had a negative connotation, but in reality it was to control negative emotions. So you didn't show those negative emotions or act on those negative emotions. And so Stoicism holds that the key to a good, happy life is the cultivation of an excellent mental state. Yeah, I could totally see that. An excellent mental state. And that that you had an attitude of calm and indifference to external things outside of you that happened outside of you, because you can't control it. You can control very little. What they felt like you can control is your character. I have like a bite or something. I got a bug bite. You can control your character or your attitude. And so they were of the mindset that you can control things in your head, regardless of what's happening outside of you. And there's a book, the handbook, from Epictetus. I don't know how to say his name. I heard it today, but I'm not familiar with how to say it. And I spelt it right from the way they said it, so why can't I say it now? I don't know. Epictetus. He wrote a book in 135 ACE, and it talks about this. He was one of the big founder guys, if that's a word. He was one of the main people who started this thought process, and so he just validated me today. I felt really validated because he said something that there's no point or resolution in worrying about things you can't control. And I always tell my kids that's wasted energy. When you're worried about something that you can't control, it's wasted energy. So I felt a little validated today from a guy who wrote a book, a couple thousand years ago. So let's see. So he wrote a book, and I've started reading through the book, and so many great things, so many. And it wasn't a difficult read, like sometimes when you read something that's written in a different time period with different language, it's really difficult. But the translation that this gal did, it was really good, and it was really easy to read. So let's see. Well, I got lost on my notes. Let's see. Oh, you can't control. Okay, attitude. The book. Okay. And he also says in this book, you wouldn't, basically he says, not in the same language I'm going to use, but he says you wouldn't let someone hijack your body and just give it away and take it over. You just wouldn't. You protect your physicality. You don't let people do certain things to you. So his point was, why do you let people hijack your mind? Why do you let people determine how you're going to feel? Why do you let them have control of your mind? And that you should have control of your own mind and your own thoughts. So today I was listening to a podcast. I listened to several today, and they were all good. From Bill Irvine was being Bill Irvine was being interviewed, and he has a couple books about Stoicism. And he said you have about 5 seconds to decide how you're going to frame your emotions or when something happens, you have about 5 seconds to decide how you're going to act, how you're going to respond, how it's going to be for you, which is interesting. I wouldn't have known that we had that. To me, 5 seconds seems like a long time. So we actually have a moment where we can decide how we're going to react. Because he said that once your emotions start going and they start getting aroused, they start, it's hard to tamp them down. It's hard to make, get down, back down, and it's just too hard. It's oftentimes hard to do. Not too hard. It's hard to do. So you want to train yourselves to reduce the negative emotions once they're in that little 5 second. And even as we're practicing, a do-over. Like I start to do something and I go, wait a minute, do-over. And because when we practice things, we mess up. And so it's like sometimes we have to do things over. So was thinking about all this. And that our society basically has said that you can't control you. We can't control, they say, it seems like to me, and maybe I'm wrong, you can have your opinion and let me know. It seems like society's basically saying, you can't control your emotions. You need a prescription for that. You can't control whether you go in debt. It's society's fault. You can't control your temper. You're just born with it. You can't control your sexuality. If you make a promise to be in a committed relationship, you just can't help it that you break your commitments. I mean, society is generationally said to us, nothing's in your control. And I think that's why the Stoicism is coming back into vogue, basically, because people are finding, yes, you can do certain things to control yourself. How about that? And that it actually brings you a lot more happiness. So they have several things that you can do to help yourself in that little 5 second window to help you train yourself. But I was just going to do one or two things. One of them is the negative visualization. So I think we do this a lot of times naturally. It's basically saying, what's the worst case scenario? if this happens, or if if I follow this thread, if I get angry and follow this thread, where does it lead? And so, and also with the circumstances around you, what is the worst case scenario of this? Will it hurt you that much to just like move on? Will it hurt you to just let it go? Another thing he talked about was, what was the thing he talked about? Oh, I was like, what did he talked about being engaged mentally in exciting things and being just a high level of engagement. You really don't care what's going on. And I think that's something that creativity does for us when we have gone through the creative process numerous times and it starts to become part of our character. We start to go, you know what, I ain't got no time for that. We just don't have time for that kind of thing because there's too many other exciting things to do. And I think maybe sometimes when people don't have anything else to do, that's what they remunerate about. That's what they go on about. Like a complainer. Like a complainer goes on and on and on. It's like self-inflicting wounds. So what's the worst case scenario? And then another thing is to reframe it. Like take that into reframe what's happening and say, this, is this the worst it can be? No, it's not. Is this going to last forever? So there's different reframing things you can do too. And it seems like there was one more I was going to say. I don't know. But maybe you can share some ideas with how you instinctively take those 5 seconds. Because we don't all act on the emotions we have. Because all of us would be dead. That's what I think. We'd all be dead because if we reacted on all the emotions. But so what is it that you do when you have those 5 seconds before when the emotion's coming up that you are stoic and learn how to control the negative emotion? And the Stoics really did enjoy things. They wanted to have that control of the negative emotions because it brought joy to their lives, and they could feel and embrace that joyful part of things. So that's the tip tonight. Be a little stoic. Take your 5 seconds. How are you going to reframe things? You might be hearing more about the Stoics later because I think it's really interesting, especially something that's that old, and that people kind of probably had that idea. And sometimes when we have ideas in a culture, we don't reteach them because we just figure, like our kids, people around us are going to see how to do it. And sometimes we let certain things that are of value go because we don't really reteach it. So tell me if you have things that you do, because that would be helpful. I haven't read and added more to this yet to figure out more, so I'm going to do that. But remember, you have a creative heartbeat, so listen for it. And I will be back tomorrow. Bye.